Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:32 p.m. and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Here.
Mr. Helmer, Ms. Connick,
Here.
Mr. Kurth, Ms. Schulz,
Here.
Mr. Seidel,
Here.
Ms. Spindler.
Here.
Mr. Kurth let me know he's unable to attend this evening, and Mr. Helmer will be coming later. Then if I could please have a motion to recess to closed session.
I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of June 12th, B, employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby and a second by Mr. Seidel. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Connick,
Yes.
Ms. Schulz,
Yes.
Ms. Spindler.
Yes.
We're moving into closed session. We'll return to open session around 7 o'clock. It is now 7:14, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. We're going to begin this evening with the recognition of a student program spotlight, Build.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to Patrick to introduce our guests.
Up and I'll talk for just a little bit here. So the New Berlin Build Team it's a student organization that competes with other schools in southeastern Wisconsin, and essentially what they do is they take motorcycles, they completely dismantle them, make modifications, rebuild them, and they have competitions based on that. They usually work with Royal Enfields, like this bike here, although there are some other manufacturers that they will also compete in from time to time. For example, this is a Harley Davidson. The students learn skills like welding, cutting, shaping metals, painting, powder coating. You can see some of the activities that the kids are doing here. Then the students compete in different challenges. For example, they'll have a design challenge, which if you get a chance to take a look at this bike, the design work that they learned how to do on the gas tank is phenomenal. They also, they tear these engines apart, put them back together, and they have competitions as to how much horsepower they can get out of them in a dyno challenge. And they also have pit challenges. The mentors can talk a little bit more about that. We've got two great mentors that I'm going to introduce, building and ground staff people. We have Doug Geisfeld, who's maintenance, and Scott Kasabuski, who's just became our new head custodian at West Middle and High School. These mentors work with all the students that are involved. This is just a few of the students that are involved with this particular program. Great stuff that they do. I'm going to let them talk a little bit about their program. They might have the kids come up. But this type of program, I think, is so important for our kids. I said it's near and dear to my heart. I started wrenching on things when I was 10, and I put new brakes on my Buick last week Thursday. I still do it today. So the things that these students are learning are things that they're going to keep through their entire life, and it's just the fact that they get to compete in it, I think, is also very special. So I'll turn it over to Doug and Scott, introduce the kids, and tell you a little bit more about the program.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Again, I'm Doug Geisfeld. I'm the lead mentor for the Build program. Patrick pretty much explained the gist of the program. He might have over-embellished a few things, but we're not allowed to tear apart the motors and do that extensive amount of work, but we are allowed to take everything off that isn't needed from a stock motorcycle to turn it into a flat track racing bike. Blinkers, headlights, all that stuff goes away. I'll touch base a little bit on some of the milestones, is what we call them, The students are required to make a design, motorcycle design. That's one of the first milestones that they have to do as a team. They can work together, come up with a plan of what they want their bike to look like. So these are what they kind of came up with designs. I wish we had pictures. I could kind of show you what they had all done, but short notice and shortness of time, we didn't get that together. Then they're also in charge of fundraising. So they get to learn a little bit of how to manage money, how to raise money to support a program, different ways of doing it, be it selling T-shirts, raffling. We raffled off one of our motorcycles from a previous year to get money for our program so that we can put money back into these bikes and compete at that level. After fundraising, Patrick mentioned the Dyno Challenge. That's the next biggest thing, where we compete against 11 or 10 other buildings or 10 other schools to see which bikes create the highest amount of horsepower. We do that through adjusting, maybe through timing, changing the exhaust. We kind of play a little bit with some gearing and different size chains and that to try and gain a little bit more horsepower. This motorcycle, actually, we put a supercharger on it this year. I wish I would have it on, but it wasn't feasible for racing on the track with it. It was solely put on there to try and increase the horsepower. Didn't work. We fell a little bit short of time, so we weren't able to tune it to that supercharger. But we were still able to get the bike going on the dyno with it on there. We'll revisit it probably down the road because I think we can still make it work. What else? We get done with the Dyno Challenge, and the next challenge is the race. All schools compete at Beaver Dam Cycle Club. We have a race. We don't get awards or anything like that, but it's like a grudge match, if you will. All the schools can get on the track, race against each other on our own class, and it's just bragging rights is really all it is. One thing we are doing different this year, though, we have 3 races at the same track up in Beaver Dam that we're going to compete with the other schools. Hopefully they all kind of stay intact and bring some of the students with them. And at the end of September, there's supposedly going to be a trophy for, I don't know, maybe first, second, third place. But we'll keep a tally of how each team places in each race. And at the end of the season, you get kind of a little trophy to take home. So that puts a little bit of competition into it. The main race for Build is basically it's to let the kids see that their bike that they spent on since January all the way until June working on, to actually see it compete on a track, to see it physically race. That I think for these students is a big thing. Why you come in here every week, we work on this thing. What do we get out of it? Well, you get to learn, like Patrick says, we're teaching them how to weld. We teach them machining skills. We have a lathe and a mill back here. They get to learn how to do a little painting, some powder coating. They mount the tires. They are in charge of pretty much all the cosmetics of these motorcycles. So they have to come up with how they want their bikes to look, and they got to make it happen. And the work is solely done by them. Us as mentors, we're just there to make sure they don't cut off any fingers, and that what they decide to come up with works in the end, because we want it to be a rideable and safe bike too. So at the end, after the race, then the next thing is what we call the bikes all compete as far as what they look like. We were down at Boone and Crockett. No, where was it this year? It was at Boone and Crockett. So they have what they call the Brewtown Rumble, which is a bike show. It's a competition for other people to come in and show their bikes. They get awards and stuff for it. But all the people that come up to this are allowed to vote on each one of the Build bikes. And at the end of the day, whoever has the most votes in their little pack that they hang on the handlebars wins a trophy or an award for best of show, if you will. At the same time, at the end, middle of that day, we have what we call the skills challenge, I think they called it this year. We call it a pit challenge. They'll come up with an idea of what they want the kids to do. This year, it happened to be they had to remove the rear wheel, hand it to two other kids, and then put the rear wheel basically back on. It all had to be assembled, retightened, and it was inspected to make sure that everything was put back appropriately. And then we had to race it across the finish line. So this team actually took third this year. It's the highest we've ever taken. To me, I would like to win the whole thing, be number one. But I'm gonna tell you, we've struggled so much in the last, I've been in this program for 10 years. And I've never seen the team get any higher than maybe 5th or 6th place. So for me to get third this year was a big feather in my hat. I was very proud of what these kids did. Us as mentors, that basically shows us that what we showed them how to do on these bikes, they learned something. And like Patrick says, it's gonna be a life skill. I mean, they're gonna carry this through their life. They haven't, you know, whether they decide to take it on as a career, that's up to them. But we did our part to at least broaden their perspective as to what it takes to work on motorcycles. I think it's a good program for the fact that in a school atmosphere, at least here in New Berlin, the kids don't have that ability because those programs are no longer available in our school. So this is just our way. You know, we do this voluntarily. We don't get paid to do this. But we want to see the kids learn what we learned when we were younger. Just like Patrick said, he was doing his stuff since he was 10 years old. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? So that's the way we do it, and that's how it works. So you guys want to say something, and that I'll hand it off to one of the students. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Glenn Langer. This year I was a mentor for the New Berlin Build program. I was a student in it for all 4 years of high school. I graduated from New Berlin West in 2022, and I wanted to be a mentor, and this year it was a great experience teaching these kids this season. It was the first season for us to have 2 motorcycles for us to work on. It was pretty interesting teaching more kids than we ever have. But I think the season went well. I think we should all be very proud of what we accomplished. I think we should have won Best in Show, but the public had other ideas, but that's okay. It was our first taste of a Harley Davidson, so that was interesting. It's a new platform for the Royal Enfields, so it was a pretty big learning curve for me as a mentor, despite what I've learned so far from the program. But it was a great experience. This is kind of the stuff that I love to do. I joined the union right out of high school, but this is kind of my passion, things with motors, motorcycles, cars, anything with an engine, really. And in the build program, man, I learned so much, guys, I tell you what. I learned so much about Milwaukee motorcycle culture than I think I would have ever known. I met a lot of great people in the scene, met a lot of head honchos of some pretty significant organizations and just some overall great people. And the skills that I learned from Doug taught me a lot, Scotty taught me a lot, learning how to fabricate, weld, tune, and troubleshoot, definitely. Definitely. The first year of the program that I joined, at the time we were using old 1970s Hondas, so nowadays pretty big leap in technology, fuel injection, there's no carburetors, just older technology, and that we had to learn a lot of like surface prepping and rust proofing and rust removal. But the foray into the EFI era, it's been pretty interesting. It's a lot of electrical troubleshooting and cutting wires and see what you can get away with. And if the bike dies, then you got to retie that wire again. But yeah, the program's been a great experience for me because in high school I was always looking for the hands-on classes. I especially did the construction classes and the civil engineering and a few STEM classes here and there, but This is my auto class. The build program was my auto shop. It was my metals class. It was my welding class, pretty much. That's what I really had to work off of. Despite knowing my knowledge of cars at home, I mean, my pa's the one who taught me how to do all that stuff. But this was what I was able to have access to in, I guess, the extracurricular world, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a great honor this year to become a mentor, and because of what I learned over these years being in the program, I want to be able to pass it on to whoever's willing to learn. I'm hoping to do it for a long time because I love this program. So I guess thanks to everybody for the opportunity. Thanks to all these guys here, and being able to speak to you guys about it tonight. It really means a lot to me. This program means a lot. Thank you.
My name is Scott Kazawski. All the kids call me Scotty K because they cannot pronounce my last name, which I'm fine with that. I joined this, 21, 22, I think, when I first started here as a custodian. Doug actually seeked me out because of my background. So race cars, motorcycles, stuff like that, fabricating. I used to have my own shop. I used to build race cars for a living. So when he asked me to join the team, I'm like, man, this would be kind of cool to give some of my knowledge that I've had over the last 20, 30 years into some of the kids. Well, who do you think that, these kids want to be going fast and build something cool, but they did. And like Doug said, at the end of the year, at the end, the whole thing is teaching them life skills, using a screwdriver, using wrenches, welding, anything like that. And it's awesome because now, like, you have a kid that comes in, he doesn't know what a screwdriver is. At the end, he can change the back tire. So to us, it's like a kind of a heartwarming thing. And sorry, I get a little emotional because I grew up teaching myself how to do all this. Nobody's ever taught me as a kid, as a young adult or anything like that. So I was always self-taught. So I get emotional when I see these kids do this stuff when we teach them. Glenn's been fantastic. The first year first thing he says, he goes, hey, can we do something different with the bike since it's not in competition? Well, I showed him a few things and he loved it. These two younger gentlemen, they're the first year. Owen is a second year and Tanner's a first year. And these two kids, same thing. They dug into it, and anytime we want to work on the bikes or anytime we want to hold a session, they are there right next to us, trying to learn something, whatever it may be, whether for troubleshooting, even just to be there. So in my heart, this is a very good program. I forget to mention that I am a board director for the Build program. So it's kind of a double thing for me. So I see it and I live it. But for the most part, I think you guys need to keep this thing very active for in the future, and so do these kids. So if we can build more mentors and get more kids involved, let's bring it bigger and better every year. This year we tried for 16 kids. Doug thought it was crazy. We did it. It was a challenge, very big challenge. But I told Doug we need to get as many kids involved with this and expand it, and we did. And now more kids are already asking for next year. How do we get on? Are we in for next year? Are we this? Are we that? So after this season, who knows where it takes us? So, but with that saying, Owen, come on up, buddy.
Hello, my name is Owen, second year student at the Build team. I don't know, this year I feel like was better than last year. I liked it a lot more. Having two bikes was a lot different of an experience. Something I really enjoyed. Really enjoyed this program. All the skills it taught me. Yeah, it's something I really enjoyed to do, even though it doesn't take up a whole lot of time, but it's amazing.
Hello, I'm Tanner Haas. This is my first year on the Build team. It's been wonderful. Let me tell you. It's working on this Royal Enfield is just, it pretty much changed my life. It really did. I had some mechanical background when working with my dad or working on my project truck. As soon as I started this build team, my mechanical skills have just increased significantly. It's almost insane. This build team means a lot to me. It really does. Those 4 hours of every Tuesday night, putting in the blood, sweat, tears, everything. It means a lot to us. Keeping this in, like Glenn said, not having a metal shop, not having a welding shop, no auto shop. This pretty much is our auto shop since it's been gone for I don't know how many years, probably since I've been in elementary school. This pretty much helps a lot of the kids that have wanted to be in this, build something like this, have a future in this. It really does help. And like I said, it really, it makes us happy. It really does. You can even, like Owen was saying, this whole team brought a lot of people together. Half of the people I didn't even know. I knew 2 people, or 3, plus Glenn. And now I know pretty much everyone on that build team. We talk in group chats about what we're gonna do next week. We pretty much get in touch with each other. It's pretty much almost like a mini family. Like, we know what's going on. We know what's gonna happen. And it's an amazing thing that this is that this build team is here. It really does help. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Congratulations, everybody.
Could I bother you with some questions? I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I'll let you go first. Okay. Thank you so much, mentors, for doing this. This is so important, and I really do appreciate that. I was just curious, do you guys have any team organization? Do you have team captains or sub-teams or anything, or you just sort of just collaborate all together?
What we did this year is because we had, like Scotty said, I think we had 16 kids this year. What we did then is normally we would just have one motorcycle. But because we had so many kids, we're allowed to have 6 kids on a team. It's up to us. If we have 8 kids, we can name a captain, if you would. But I don't like putting labels above people's names because I want all the kids to work together as a team, as in one. So, no, I wouldn't say that we had, like a captain or a lead person on each team. That's what the mentors are for. We kind of take that lead. But we did take the students and basically, depending on their skill level in our before we started working on the bikes, we would question the kids on what's your background? How much do you really know? This bike was a little bit more challenging. This one we kind of bare bones and kept it kind of basic. So we took the kids that had a little bit more skill or a little bit more knowledge, working at home with mom and dad or whatever in the garage, or kids that returned like Owen here. We put those kids on this bike because there was a little bit more extensive work that went on here. I could be here for hours explaining all of it, but if you're familiar at all with motorcycles, you look, this front end alone it's something that you won't see because one of our mentors is a machinist, and instead of saying, well, let's make wider forks or buy wider forks, he's not like that. He's the guy that's going to say, well, let me take the kids in the back, we'll work on the lathe and the mill, and we'll show them how to make it. So that's how we kind of categorize the kids. We put them on some of the more challenging stuff like that. But there is no, per se, leaders of any. They're all one team. They all work together as equals.
So where do you do your work then? Is it at one of the school rooms here?
We actually work right across the hallway over here, what we call the warehouse. What we did in the past, we would work out of, if you remember, I don't know, I'm sure some of you people remember Hal's Harley Davidson. All right, when they were Hal's, we worked out of there. And then they sold out and it became Irontown. We worked out of there at the same time. And then Irontown went out of business. So we were fortunate enough, I think, Joe, you were here at the time, and we said, we have no place to work, but we want to continue with the program. Mr. Garza, Mr. Miller are staunch supporters of this program, and they've been behind us 100%. They made room in the warehouse. Bring your stuff over here, you can work out of here. So that's where we work now.
Very good. I follow you guys on social media. I'm pretty impressed with the social media you guys do.
Thank you.
Who does your social media? Just the team members all do that? No, that's really good because you do get out there what it is you're doing. So really impressive. Thank you very much.
Can I ask one question? You talked about for fundraising, raffling off an old bike. How much do you, like, what's the range do you get for those bikes?
In a raffle, it depends on how many tickets we sell. So each student was given, I don't know, you guys remember? 50 or 100 tickets, and it was up to them to sell them. So if they sold all of them, I don't know, what does that come to? I'm not a mathematician here, but do you know offhand what we ended up with on that bike?
I think it was around 20.
Okay. Now, what we do, we have to pay up front before the season starts, $2,000 for each motorcycle. That every school has to do that. So that's where the fundraising comes in. We, not only do you have to recoup that $2,000, but if we want extra parts, we have to come up with ways of making more money. One thing that we're doing, by grace of Patrick here, he okayed it, is the end of July, we're having a big car show here. That will be a type of fundraiser. We'll have all the students here helping run the thing. We'll be selling food and drinks and stuff like that. We'll probably do some 50-50 raffles, stuff like that. But those are the kind of things that we do to raise money to come up with funds to pay for these bikes. I don't think we've ever came to you guys as administrators and asked for more money. We find ways. We're kind of self-supporting that way. So,
What other school districts participate in this? Is it
Scotty,
all
you're a
over
board
Wis-
member?
Is it Wisconsin?
Yeah.
It's all Wisconsin?
Yeah.
We're just starting to branch out a little further west.
Okay.
So I think we have one in Kewaskum, Oconomowoc now. Kind of stay within a certain milestone, but majority of it's like Milwaukee, Springfield.
Okay.
We have both schools right now that compete. As far as I know,
That's wonderful. Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys
you.
for having us. I appreciate it. All right, let's get the bike.
I do note that students have all their fingers, so far, so good.
Yeah. No casualties.
Very good.
And I can tell you, you're seeing these bikes at the right time of the year. For example, that Harley Davidson, when they got it earlier this year, it was down to frame. Everything was out of it.
Thank you.
Oh, next is privilege of the floor. Do we have any? No. Okay. I don't have anything for president's message either. So we'll move on to the administrative team report, superintendent's update.
I'll defer to the regular agenda items.
Okay. And then we have district reports, which is the incident report, the suspension report, the enrollment report, and the donations report. Mr. Seidel, would you please read the donations report?
It'd be my pleasure. Our first donation was from 627 Renee Konik for Eisenhower to support the acquisition of tools enabling Eisenhower art teachers, CCR, the amount of $500. Next one was from 627 Orchard Lane for Mathnasium to support Orchard Lane with banners in the amount of $500. Then we had from 627 Ronald Reagan, Mathnasium, support Ronald Reagan with banners in the amount of $500. The next one was 627 Orchard Lane PFC, pay for buses for the 6th grade field trip at Orchard Lane in the amount of $579.18. The next one was 627 for Orchard Lane PFC, pay for sling bags for new kindergarten at Orchard Lane in the amount of $521.45. The next one, 627 Poplar Creek PTO, pay for the all-school field trip bus at Poplar Creek in the amount of $1,924.73. The next one, 627 New Berlin West Men's Warehouse to support prom at New Berlin West in the amount of $500. Next one, 627 New Berlin West Football Club, support scholarships at New Berlin West in the amount of $2,000. Lastly, we have 627 New Berlin West Waterstone Bank to support a scholarship at New Berlin West in the amount of $1,000, bringing our total donations to $8,025.34. And thank you so much to our generous donors. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the notice, the approval of minutes of the board meeting on June 12th, and the financial reports. Are there any items that should be pulled up for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Seidel, a second by Ms. Crosby to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. On to the regular agenda. First on the regular agenda is the approval of the preliminary budget for 2023-24.
We did not receive any additional comments, questions, or concerns from the board. In summary, we are proposing a balanced budget. Of note, we are looking at property tax decrease of $19 on a $250,000 home. As noted, the tax rate has actually gone down 8 of the last 10 years. And we are looking at maintaining and possibly even increasing our fund balance as needed. But we would recommend approval of the preliminary budget as presented.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel, a second by Ms. Crosby to approve. Any discussion? Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. We next have second read and approval of the new policies for adoption, the 3,000s, which are for personnel, and the 5,000s for students. Note that there were some revisions since our last meeting.
Yes. If I could speak to those, specifically policy 3215, we had a concern of the words imitation tobacco products that were in there. And so we did follow up with Neola. They did remove any connotation or any reference to the imitation. You know, for example, if it looked like Big League Chew, if it looked like the beef jerky in the chew canisters, we didn't feel that those were necessarily appropriate to be included. So we recommend deleting those. And then there was, as far as policy 3240, there was a discrepancy between the board-approved employee handbook and the grievance procedure outlined in this policy, and they are now aligned to match each other. So with those changes, we would recommend approval of the policies for adoption, the 3,000s personnel and the 5,000 students as presented.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and a second by Ms. Crosby to approve. Any discussion? Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Let's see, we have some amendments to the meeting dates. We discovered that there were some meeting dates that instead of the second and fourth Mondays of the month, it was the first and third. And so those have been adjusted. So that is August. And then was September? I can't remember. May. Okay, so next May. Do I have a motion to approve the amended meeting dates?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel, a second by Ms. Crosby to approve the amending of the meeting dates. Is there any discussion? It sounds like we all prefer these dates, so, okay, good. Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. And then we also have an action item from closed session.
I move to approve the employment services report as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby and a second by Mr. Seidel to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Then we have future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. in Conference Room E at district offices unless noted otherwise. Our next meeting is July 24th. It is the only meeting in July. And then August, I forgot to write down the dates because we did.
14th and 28th.
Okay, it's going to be August 14th and 28th for those, which will be the second and fourth Monday of the month. Other important events and dates, July 1st through 4th is our City of New Berlin Family Festival at Malone Park. And again, the Education Foundation in New Berlin is going to have their charity tent there, so please stop by. And September 25th is our annual budget and hearing, annual meeting and budget hearing. We are going to return to closed session. Do I have a motion for that, please? Yeah, you have to just read the reason we're going into, moving into closed session for the superintendent mid-year review.
It moved to return to closed session for consideration of superintendent mid-year review for previous goals and goals for new evaluation cadence.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby and a second by Mr. Seidel. I guess you have to call the roll again, right? Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Konick,
Yes.
Ms. Schultz,
Yes.
Ms. Spindler.
Yes.
We'll be, we're moving now to closed session, and we will adjourn from closed session. We will not be returning.